Today we're going to be talking about technical conversion or defense, as we will see in same color bishop endgames. Technical same color bishop endgames. The lesson is going to be quite complicated. The positions, despite the fact that we have limited material, are very often extremely difficult and complicated. The plans are not easy to find, both when you're trying to convert and also when you're trying to defend, as we will see. So any small mistake can mean a lot in the long run. So we have this position first. This is a game between Alexander Grischuk and America's own Nakamura. And in this position, Grischuk has a big decision to make. He can either preserve the rooks on the board and try to break black's defense with them on the board, or he can exchange the rooks and force a bishop endgame. Which one is the right decision? Let's try to figure it out. If you are at home watching, I would definitely tell you to stop the video, give it some thought, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, try to understand the position, and then come up with a decision. This is a very good practical exercise as well as just endgame understanding exercise. You will find yourself in this type of situations very often. So you guys take 5 minutes, maybe a bit less, and then we'll discuss it. Okay, so what is the initial instinct in this position? To do what? Yes?
I keep the rooks on the board because I'm afraid if we trade them, that dark squared bishop at one pawn can draw against the 3 pawns in the bishop.
It's very possible, and of course this is the decision he has to make, because the ensuing endgame, the ensuing bishop endgame, is not easy at all to break. As we will see, Grischuk, I think, needed at least 30 more moves after this move. He played rook a5. The problem is, if he goes rook b7 and tries to enter like this, I'm going to go king to e8, king to e6, and then rook a6, forcing you to go back. There's not really a clear way of making progress, and the rook is going to be quite active. Black rook is going to be quite active. He's going to keep white's pieces tied to the defense of his pawns, and the breakthrough and conversion is going to be extremely difficult. And you don't really know when you're going to have next chance of actually exchanging the rooks. So Grischuk probably thought for a while. I actually don't know their time situation, and he played rook to a5 in the position. Rook takes a5, forced, bishop takes a5, bishop to a3. And now, once again, if you're at home, stop the video, try to create a plan, try to create a winning plan, and we'll see whether you achieve doing that or not. You guys, same thing. How to make progress with white? We have the black pawn on the dark square, so that's a good thing. It's going to potentially become a weakness in the future. But how are we going to break through? Easier said than done, of course, easier said than done. If we would be able to do that, then the position is easily winning. The problem is he's always going to try to stop us with the king. He's going to try to
including attacking the pawn on the d.
Correct. He's also going to keep connection with that pawn on d4. At some point, probably we're going to play the move d5 in order to liberate one of our pieces. And then he's just going to try to keep opposition with the king, to try to not allow you to enter the position. So now, there is one plan, at least one part of the plan, that kind of has to be done automatically, because it's the only way we can even hope to break through. And that is to bring the king on the king side via g4, h5, and try to enter on g6. And at the right moment, maybe we're going to use the d-pawn as a distraction. Just push it, give it away potentially, and then break through with a king on g6. If we manage to plant a king on g6, then the position is simply going to be crumbling for black. So, as we will see, this is easier said than done, once again, because black has some sort of blockade in the position. Bishop to c1, bishop c5, bishop e3, a lot of shuffling, as we will see in the next moves. Bishop to g1, king e4. Now I'm just going to stay on the c1, h6 diagonal to try to stop you from coming with the king, right? For at least as much as I can. King e8, d5. Is this a good move?
I want to keep my pawn as still as possible so I can get black in the zone.
Correct.
And then have that pawn.
Correct. But if you don't play the move d5, then how are you going to continue?
Right.
Where
Get it off that killer square to get the king moving.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't do that, where's the winning plan? Because whenever you try to move away with the king, let's say, for example, you go king to d3, and then I go bishop c1, and I guess the only way of actually going to g4 and h5 would be via e2, but then my king comes. And potentially, I'm going to go to, I think I can go to c6, bishop to e7, and then just play bishop g5. Or this might be a bit hasty by me, because now this move comes on the board, and then f4 next move. I think I made a mistake, big mistake. So king c6 is too hasty. I think I'm just going to stay here. Try to block you as much as possible. Whenever you go here, now I'm going to put my bishop on e3. Keep connection with the pawn on d4. And when you try to end, can I go king c6? Yes, I can. But this should be still very much losing. Yeah, this is very much losing. Because right now bishop e7 is coming on the board. Bishop e7 and then king d4, bishop takes f6. So I think I'm...
F4 is not winning for white here? If it's possible to play it? Or?
No, f4 is probably a good move as well, but I think that just gives me extra options as black. I think bishop e7 just simply takes the pawn. Next move, no matter what you do, because you cannot take on d4.
But the king is very well positioned now.
Yeah, and the king doesn't have moves. The black king doesn't have moves. That's why I like keeping the pawn on f3. It also controls the e4 square, and it doesn't allow my king to get close to it. So somehow I have to find a better defense as black, in the case you don't play the move d5. So after king e8, instead of d5, king d3. I might just need to be faster. I can play king d7, or I can just simply keep the king. Sorry, I have to defend my bishop first, and then keep the king here. Going to tie the bishop to the defense of the d4 pawn. Okay, I found the draw. Well, the draw. Just the way to survive. Now I'm just going to wait. and I'm simply not allowing you to enter, to penetrate via g6. The bishop is immobile because it has to stay connected to the d4 pawn. And that's why we have to play d5, so that we lessen the bishop from another burden, that of defending the d4 pawn. So let's go back. d5 was played, king to d7, bishop e3, bishop d4, bishop to d8, bishop c3, bishop e7, king f4. Yeah? Now we're going closer to the pawn, to the entrance on g6. But it's not over yet. Black still has a lot of resources to try to defend this position. Bishop to d6, king e7, king goes to f7, and the bishop stays on d6. Yeah, very important. What to do now? Let's try to find the winning plan. If you go king h5, I go king f7.
F4.
You have to be extremely careful with pawn pushes.
Yeah, I know.
F4, actually, I believe it's going to be a draw.
Yeah, yeah.
Generally, I want to keep my pawns on the light squares.
Bishop c2, trying to trade the bishop.
Bishop where?
c2, I mean d2.
d2, very good. Very good, Mr. Ken West. Of course, bishop d2, with the idea of playing the move bishop f4. I'm not going to exchange the bishops as black. That's not going to happen. But I'm going to force to displace the bishop from d6, yeah, which is a great defender. Bishop c5, bishop f4, bishop b4, king h5, king f7, bishop c3, bishop c5, bishop c5, yes. What now? What's the next step?
The pawn cannot be pushed now, d6.
Which was played? Bishop d4. Again, how are you going to continue? The king on f7, he's staying there. He's just waiting. He's just waiting. That's what I was saying. You have to use your d pawn as a decoy. But don't hurry. Because if you play d7 right now,
No.
I go king e7, king g6, king takes d7, and then I'm not sure it's a draw. It's probably still winning after king f7, but I do want a little bit more precision from you guys. Precision is extremely, extremely important and quite undervalued. He played bishop h4. He's just simply preparing to play d7. And he just wants to have the bishop attacking the f6 pawn so that he gains a tempo. Because that's where we have to focus on. We have to force the king to go away to allow our king to go to g6, and then exchange the pawn, sacrifice the d pawn, and in exchange we get the f6 pawn. Bishop h4 was played. Bishop here. d7. Bishop d8. Stubborn king. I don't want to move it away. What to do? This is another critical moment, so once again, if you're at home, stop the video, try to create a winning plan. All right, king h6, of course. We're on the right track, but still it's not over. It's definitely not over. f4? But once again, why would we put the pawn on dark squares?
Yeah.
And then?
Go further, king h7, or
But we are controlling the important squares. We are already controlling g6 and g7. These are the entry squares. By placing the king on h7 is not necessarily going to help our cause. Bishop e1, sure. I'm not going to take the bishop.
yeah.
I'm going to go bishop b6. The same.
I mean,
Going to go here.
bishop c5 is
Bishop c5, and then bishop d8, let's say. You can reach the same position. He played bishop b4, bishop d8. Whether you have the bishop on c5 or on bishop is the same thing. So that's the last part of the plan, right? Yeah, exactly. Now that we place the bishop on the a3, f8 diagonal, the king cannot go to e7 anymore. So now we don't need the king on the king side anymore. We need it on the queen side right now.
So you're walking back.
So we're gonna walk back now.
the king was maneuver. Oh my god. I want my name on it.
Now the king goes back.
Wow.
Exactly. The king goes back. King g7, king f4. Yes. It's always try to stage your winning plan. This is the first stage. I have to do this in the first stage. Then I get there. I improve my position a little bit. Create another stage. Come up with the next part of the plan, right? And solve the tasks at hand, one at a time.
You gotta get the king to e6.
Right. Now we're just going there. Bishop f4. And that's it.
That's it, he retreats until up you get e6.
Hey, yeah. I mean, you see how these three pieces control the black king very, very well. And it's important that we have this pawn on f3, controlling this g4 square, right? All right. So this was a nice win. But to be honest, Grischuk had to see all these ideas since rook a5, since move number 1. Because if he trades the rooks and he doesn't have an entry like this, then the position is just simply a draw. But you don't necessarily need to calculate, yeah? You just need to imagine the positions in your head. And that's not as difficult. Don't calculate move by move because you're going to get lost. Imagine the pieces, where the pieces should be placed. And see if there is any impediment new reaching those positions. Generally it isn't, because black is, well, the defending side is always going to have his hands full, you know, with something. He's not going to be able to necessarily create counterplay. What he's basing his defense on is a blockade, yeah, not necessarily counterplay in this situation. So he also had to see the idea of pushing the d pawn, using it as a decoy, and forcing basically the black king, the black position, the black pieces into full passivity. Yeah, with the bishop on d8, the king on f7, then cutting the king, that was the last plan, and bringing the king back to the other side. So I'm pretty sure Grischuk understood this when he decided to play a rook to a5. Okay, let's go to the next one. In which we're going to see how Maxime Vachier-Lagrave managed to defend a very, very difficult position. And we have this position, rook takes h5, king takes h5. What to do? What to do? How to set up the defense? Where is the defense? If there is one. What is black's winning plan?
Protect that center pawn and push it.
How are you going? Well,
You can't now.
right. So
Right.
I think Push the a pawn is dangerous. Once you put it on a5, that's just going to be a weakness, to be honest, a liability for your position. You're going to need the bishop on the d8 a5 diagonal to defend that a5 pawn. So be very careful with pushing your pawns on the same color as your bishop. No, most probably the winning plan in this position should be an intrusion with the king. And the only path is continue. Yeah, exactly. If we can get to d1, most probably we're going to have good chance of winning. Nevertheless, getting to d1 is not going to be an easy task because I'm going to keep the king to d3, and you're going to have to pass through e1. Yeah, you're going to have to firstly displace my bishop. That's not going to be an easy task. It's doable though, as we will see. So, what's white's mechanism? In this type of positions, you kind of, as I was mentioning at the end of the last problem, you have to kind of build technical mechanisms in your mind. Understand how to arrange your pieces. So white started with the move b3. Obviously, this is a good technical move. You're placing your pawn on the light square. It's not going to be a potential target for the black's bishop. Let's see how to continue. King to g4, bishop d2, king to f3, bishop to e1.
Bishop c7.
Well, I think first thing that we need to do is just get the king to f1. Mm-hmm. So that we're ready to enter to e1.
Okay, so then just g2.
At any moment. He played king g2. Bishop d2.
Now,
King f2 or f1. Bishop to b4. a6. Another good technical move. We're placing our, the attacker's pawn on the light squares. Bishop d2. There's no hurry, yeah? We can wait and see what our opponent is going to do, especially if you're on the defending side. Even psychologically, it's going to be extremely difficult to just survive for long periods of time. So the longer the game goes, the higher the chance the defender is going to blunder something or is going to miss a certain defensive resource. Bishop to c7. Bishop c3, bishop f4, as we will see some shuffling of the pieces going on. Bishop b4. King to f1. Okay. So now what we're going to try to do is put the bishop to e1, potentially drive the bishop off that diagonal and force it onto which diagonal? Well, c1, h6 diagonal, that's not going to stop our king from reaching d1, right? He has to go on the h4, e1 diagonal, yeah? But that one is a little bit shorter, yeah? So we will see that plays a very important role. Bishop c3, bishop g5, we're not in a hurry. Bishop h4, bishop e1, bishop d8, bishop d4, bishop h4. You're still not entering. Not yet, at least. What to do? It's difficult. It's difficult to get that king away and that bishop away. The only way of doing that, is it by brute force or is it by something else? Zugzwang, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to achieve the Zugzwang, but it's doable. If you could put the bishop where would an immediate Zugzwang be? Take the bishop off the board, the black's bishop, and put it anywhere you want on the board. Correct. Bishop f4. That would be a Zugzwang, right? So let's try to get it there. He started off with the move bishop to a3, because right now if you go something like bishop g3, I think I'm going to go bishop c1. Now if you go bishop h4, I go bishop f4, and that's about it. And if you go king c2, I'm going to go, I can also enter bishop f2, I think. Bishop here, and then bishop f2, and then I enter with the king on f1. Or even easier to go, well, I don't know about easier, but I can also do this. Bishop g5, and you're again in Zugzwang, because your bishop doesn't have squares. So white played a good prophylactic move. King to d2, stopping that bishop from reaching c1. The problem persists. How to continue? Bishop b2. Yes. Yes. Bishop d2, he's just going to defend with bishop f6. I'm trying to think whether I can do something else. No, bishop f6 makes a lot of sense.
So bishop to d5.
Hmm?
Bishop to d5.
Bishop to d6?
Yes.
You mean? Bishop to d6. Okay, that's what he played. But what to do? How to continue?
h7. I mean h2.
Very good. Bishop h2. Of course. Now you're in Zugzwang. If you go bishop f2, I go bishop g1. That's why you have to put the bishop on h2, not anywhere else on the diagonal, because otherwise I would have extra moves. If you go king f3, I go bishop g1. I attack your pawn on d4, then you have to move the bishop off the h4 e1 diagonal, and then I penetrate with the king. King e1, king d2, etc. Game over, yeah? So is it all lost? It's not all lost. As we will see. It's not, I mean, we're not there at the critical moment just yet. It looks as if it's lost. It looks as if the black king goes to d1, the game is over. Fortunately for white, we have another line of defense. And that is the h6 c1 diagonal now, yeah? Because I'm going to put the king on d3, and then you're going to have to pass through c1 to get there. So he played king to d3, king d1, bishop d2.
Yeah.
All right. How can black continue trying to make any progress? We have to displace the bishop from which diagonal?
Bishop d6, a3,
Correct. Bishop d6, a3, and c1, right? To displace the bishop from the c1 h6 diagonal. I think it's the only square where we can do that from. So of course, that's where he went. Bishop g5, bishop to a3. This is it. I'm going to give you a few minutes just to try to kind of basking all the information you received and try to understand whether white has any more chances or not. Maybe calculate. If you're at home, you're probably going to need a lot more time. You can give yourself even half an hour in this position. I gave this position to like 2400s, and they had difficulties finding the defense. But we know Vachier is an extremely, extremely powerful defender.
King C3.
Well, King C3, I'm going to go King E2. This is more or less a study-like defense. Wait, excuse me, what?
So
King C3, King E2.
oh, you go king e2.
Yeah. King C3, King E2.
Yeah, I thought you were. Well,
So let's see. Let's see Bishop D2, yeah? That definitely deserves our attention. Or, for that reason, Bishop F4. And now Bishop D6, right? And whenever we move the bishop on the C1 H6 diagonal, we will try to stop your entrance with Bishop A3. Bishop D2, extremely good move. Bishop to C5, you still cannot go King C1 because Bishop A3, and now your bishop on D2 is under attack. Bishop to E1, now King C1 becomes a threat. If I manage to bring the king to B2 or B1 for that respective matter, then the position is just losing. So Bishop A3 has to be played. Is this a draw?
I don't want to give it up yet because I got that B pawn.
Which, where?
That B pawn just makes me hopeful.
Yes, absolutely. How to make progress though? Seems like White has some sort of blockade, but maybe he doesn't. There's one thing you need to understand in this position. And it's a technique that you use it in many, many types of endgames. Can anybody tell me what you need to understand?
Bishop to B2.
Is black to move?
Oh, it's black.
And that's exactly what you need to understand.
how about a5?
You need to understand that it's black to move. If it would be white to move, he's in Zugzwang.
Well, then you can play a5. Bishop b2 and bishop b4. Then what do you do?
It's a good question. A5 definitely seems like the right move, but that's something we have to be once again very careful with, because if we put the pawn on the dark square, it might cost us a weakness. So let's see A5. Let's see A5. It's definitely an interesting move. I'm gonna try to defend. I don't know if there is a defense, but I think there is.
Yeah, bishop B2.
Bishop B2, Bishop B4. So that was his idea, because once again, in this position, if White is to move, he's going to have to make a concession. If he goes Bishop B2, then we go Bishop B4, and then he's kind of in Zugzwang once again. He has to allow us to get the king to C1 or to C2 if he moves with the king. So the problem is, the only way in this particular case to lose tempo is with the move A5, it seems. But I don't like creating that weakness there. I'm going to try to take advantage of that somehow. Not sure if there is a way though.
So keep it on the right square.
This might work. This might just simply win. Right, that's the thing. If you go Bishop B2, I'm going to go Bishop B4. If you move the bishop on the other side, like Bishop C5 or something like that, then I just go King C1. I'm trying.
I mean, I can go, if you go back to a3 or king b,
Ah,
and then what is
here, Bishop A3, King B1. Now I'm threatening King A2. That's the problem. That's a big problem.
right? You move the bishop and king b2.
Right. And it seems like we're losing that pawn, I think. So wait, a5 is interesting. And if I go here, you go here. Bishop. This seems to be losing. Yeah. Maybe a5 is winning as well. Maybe a5 is winning as well.
If a5, bishop to d6.
Okay. King c1. King b2.
Bishop to e2.
e3?
D2.
No, but this should be losing, right?
Oh, and that pawn gets passed, I take it to the other one.
Yeah, I think even without this pawn is losing.
Yeah,
Because I'm going to go king c4 and then I'm going to put you into the zone.
yeah,
You're going to have to give me the d4 pawn.
yeah.
So I'm still quite puzzled because I thought there was a defense, but for some reason I cannot find it right now.
Can white swing the king back over to the other side to attack that e pawn?
I don't think you're going to be in time. It's a good try, but I don't think you're going to be in time. And even if you take this pawn, I'm going to put my king to c4. Your king is very far from the a pawn, and then I'm just going to use my bishop to promote the pawn.
Is it white's move here?
Yeah.
So bishop to c, yes.
And then a4,
And then I attack that pawn.
bishop b4. But even like that, I think should be losing.
Yeah.
Like for example, if you go bishop f8, let's say, go a bit further, and then yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to win this position.
Yeah.
I can even just take this pawn and then play bishop c5, and then
Right.
even if you manage to sack the pawn,
The other one.
I have the other one. Yeah, I have the d pawn.
Right.
This is a bit annoying that I cannot find the defense. Okay, we'll leave it as a5 is winning as well, even though there should be a defense that I'm missing right now. I would cheat and use the engine, but I don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay. So let's say a5 is winning as well. Let's just say that it is. Oh, okay. So maybe a better defense as white. Yep. Opposition.
And then you cannot go anywhere. I follow you.
Correct. Very good. King c3.
What's going on? I cannot see.
Brilliant defense. After king e2, b4. Now I'm threatening to play king b3. So now king d1 has to be played. Support bishop c1. King b3. Bishop c1. Bishop takes c1. King c1. King c3. Opposition. And you don't have moves. a5 doesn't work. e5 doesn't work. And wherever you go, I'm going to follow you. Go here. Go here. Go here. You go here.
At this point, white is not winning. It tries to play something different. White
Like this?
is not good.
Or here. Actually, whenever you go here to get you.
Farther away, yeah.
Correct. Let's see. I think you might actually be losing. So you have to be very careful. You can get a bit too greedy. Too greedy, and then you lose, because you have to take one extra pawn, and then in the meantime he defends the other one. So, but yeah, you just keep opposition at all times, and it's just a draw. Yeah. So very nice defense. by white with this move king to c3. So now he played a5. And now it's a bit different than what we were trying to analyze previously, because right now the white bishop is on a different diagonal. It's on the h6 c1 diagonal, which is a longer diagonal. Previously it was on a3, the position we were trying to decipher earlier. So right now I think it's still a draw, because that a5 pawn can be used as a weakness for white. So bishop c1, bishop d8, attacking the weakness. Bishop to d2. What to do now? Only move. Bishop c7. Bishop c7, I'm going to go king c1. And then I'm going to move my bishop, and then I'm going to play king b2. Bishop e7, yeah? So that whenever he goes king c1, we go bishop a3. King c1, bishop a3, king d1, shuffling a little bit. Now I'm going to go bishop b4. Bishop g5, and that's it. Draw. Yeah? There's no way to make any progress anymore. The problem is you have the pawn on a5. That's the liability. That just allows me to make a draw. So yeah, that was it. Never lose hope as a defender, because there's a lot of blockades in this type of bishop endgames. Yeah. As an attacker, you should always try to displace your opponent's, the defender's bishop from the longer diagonal to the shorter diagonal, if that's possible. The shorter the diagonal, the less moves he has. And the easier it's going to be for you to try to place him in Zugzwang, yeah? Which is a very, very useful technical method to try to win and convert this type of endgames. So you have Zugzwangs, you have triangulation as well. And I'm really curious to see one of your games. Maybe for next time, or whenever you find me around, bring me one of your games if you can remember one time that you had this type of endgames, and maybe we can look at it. But yeah, that was it. That's class. Endgame Exclam.